All right, everybody. So welcome. Thanks for joining me live tonight. And for those of you that are watching the recording, thanks for coming as well. My name is Dawn Bennett, and this is the first class in the 7-part series in Path to Passion. And today we're really going to focus on just a high-level overview. We'll talk about sex, intimacy, and how to bring passion back into your relationship. Or for those of you that are looking for future relationships, for those of you that are clients of mine that are looking for your future partner, and that are looking to clear these things before you enter into a relationship. This work is really meant to unblock all of the past history that informs how you interact, how you feel, and the emotional contributing factors to what's happening in your sexual and intimate life. Once again, my name is Dawn Bennett. I'll take you on a journey from healing your challenges into having more strength and power. So for those of you that have had my other classes before, you'll know that usually I pop up some PowerPoints and I just kind of like go off the cuff of my pants because I know all the information. This class is actually developed by my mentors, Alina Frank and Craig Weiner. Alina's been in this field for over 23 years. And so I'm using a lot of their data, a lot of their flow that was given to me with permission. And because it's such an informational intensive class, I'm going to be doing a lot more reading than you normally see me do because I don't want to miss anything. And because they've structured this over the last many, many, many years to really give people a deep healing experience and a deep understanding. So I'm going to go through all of that information first. I will be adding some of my own stuff as well. There's already stuff added in that's my own as well. But just know that a lot of this has actually come out of years and years and years of professional experience from people that have been working with clients in all aspects of sexuality, intimacy, trauma, sexual healing, men and women from all across the globe. So that being said, we will get started. For those of you that are live on the class, I pretty much have you hidden. However, if you have questions, if you have clarifications, you should be able to just pop it in the chat box and it should pop up for me, and then I can answer your questions as we go. For those of you that are watching the replays or that are watching the videos, feel free to text me. Feel free to email me, although remember, I'm not very fast at emails. So if it's something that's more urgent, either text me to say like, hey, I sent you an email and it's really important, or, no, it might take me a couple of days to get back to you in the email. And what other thing? Oh, at the end of the class, for those of you that are live, I will be shutting off the recording, and then you can ask me whatever else that you want. So things that are personal, things that you don't want recorded, ways that I can help you do your tapping. For those of you that are in the Eventbrite class live now, or that are my clients, you'll find all of the information, all of the recordings once they're done in the Eventbrite online class. And I'll be sending out an email for people as well. I already tried sending out PDFs of the homework and posting those in the online class. Unfortunately, Eventbrite is only letting me post videos and images and straight up text. So the homework I wasn't able to post. So what I'm going to do is after the class, I'll be emailing those out to each of you. So if you don't see that within 2 or 3 hours of class end, probably 2 hours of class end, then please check your spam. If you still don't have it, then contact me for that homework and I'll send you the PDF. For those of you that are also program clients, it's going to be right there on the website. When you do your member login, when you go to classes, go to Path to Passion, and I'll be replacing the classes. All the homework's already there for all 7 weeks. So that way you've got that. Know that the homework is actually also home play. It's not something that's like super intense and that's meant to like make you all stressed out or, oh my God, I didn't do my homework and it's so awful and I'm not supposed to come back and all those things. It's really to help support you in the process. Because even though this class is meant for your own personal healing, right? It's really important that you're doing some of that work on your own. So in the email and on the online class, you'll see that I have the Introduction to Tapping class that's on my Touch Remedies page. That's a 50-minute intro There's a 30-minute overview, or I'm sorry, a 17-minute overview and a 6-minute quick summary. So for those of you that aren't super familiar with tapping, that are new at it with me, or that haven't done a lot of it, you can always go back and really do the homework with those classes with the whole basic EFT structure. When we do tapping in these classes, we're doing it more for exploration. Like when I'm doing it live, I'm going to do it more as an exploration. So your brain will help uncover some of the things that are hidden, right? To kind of help you if you're like, hey, I can't think about a time that, I was shamed about sex. We'll do a series of tapping that will help you uncover that for yourself. So then you can go back, you can do the basic emotional freedom techniques work for yourself on those specific events. So always know that the tapping that I'm going to be doing with you in general in these classes are really to uncover. It's not the actual true basic emotional freedom techniques format, but you will be able to find those in the classes. Okay. So to give you a little bit of background on how I got here with you, I started doing massage 23 years ago and really quickly realized as I work with clients how much physical pain, physical challenges is related to our emotional state. So this led me in the path of working in a variety of like mind, body, emotional studies and techniques, classical homeopathy, Psych K, and now EFT. I really realized that touch as well was so shameful in our culture after I went and I visited other cultures and saw that sexuality, that intimacy, that touch in general was all based upon the messages that we learned as we were young. Kind of that nature versus nurture, right? So not only is there individual familial challenges, religious challenges, spiritual challenges, larger cultural challenges, subcultural, right? There's all these layers and layers and layers of messages that we have to, as individuals and as humans, break through and really understand and explore for ourselves. And what do these things mean for us? Where are my morals, my values, my expectations? How do those interact with the way I want to interact in my relationships, with my sexual partners, with my non-sexual partners, even with touch? So that's why I wrote an Amazon bestselling book called The Touch Crisis, Navigating the Tricky Terrain of Bringing Healthy Touch Back into Our Cultures, because I really believe that we all as humans really want to be loved. We are all lovable. And we're not taught that necessarily. And we're not taught how to speak our wants, our needs, and our desires very often. Some of us are, some of us are not. Some of us are only taught to do it in certain circumstances, right? So I'm not going to go super deep into all of those things because that class, I could be teaching this class for years, right? And that's really why I work a lot with all of you individuals, as you know, on some of these things. But as we immerse ourselves in this class and the complexity of relationships of all kinds, right? You can use some of these tools to apply to how do you talk to your friends? How do you talk to your family? How are your partnerships or your marriages? Okay. So my interest for you and my goal for you is to help you increase basically all kinds of intimacy. Right? Even though this class is around sexuality, there are many different kinds of intimacy. There's emotional intimacy, there's spiritual intimacy, there's intellectual intimacy, right? So it's beyond just the physical realm. But often it's the physical realm that really in the American culture gets shamed, gets put down. There's all these expectations, all these judgments, both for men and for women, that really impact how we come together as couples, how we interact in different phases of our relationships, how we interact at different ages, right? So as I've gone through my own journeys and my own healing processes and my own learning and my own education, my path of healing has really led me to teachings and studying the field of Tantra, sexual education, trauma, right? And how we interact on all of these different levels and what the expectations are and how to break through those. So you can really decide for yourself how you want to show up in the world. Okay. So once again, I'm really fortunate to have my mentors, Alina Frank and Craig Weiner, who are, excuse me, the emotional freedom techniques master trainers of trainers. They are my mentors. Alina has over 20 years in the field of sexual healing and sacred sexuality. She's also the international best-selling author of the book called How to Want Sex Again. And so, as I mentioned, they created the majority of this course and have allowed me to adapt it and use it as my own. So, emotional freedom techniques. Alina would say that after years of specializing in the field of relationships, she has yet to come across a faster and more effective process for creating joy, greater sensual and sexual expression, and kind of a mutually loving bond that people can have in their relationships than using emotional freedom techniques to clear some of the emotional stigma, the emotional trauma, the emotional baggage that we carry with us, and things that we were taught even as young as children, right? From observing our parents' relationships or relationships outside, or what teachers taught us, right? So I'm holding this class live, but once again, if you want to ask a question, just please remember to drop it in the chat. I'm required by law to tell you that this is considered highly experimental, to apply it at your own risk, and then it's advisable to consult with your doctor and therapist before proceeding. Whoa, here are my notes. All right. Now, I'm going to go over the basics of emotional freedom techniques tapping, which is the heart of the healing modality we're going to use throughout the program. In the course material, there's a PDF of all the points, as I mentioned, and all of the videos for you to review. Don't worry if you haven't memorized the entire tapping process, because as we start doing the tapping live, I'm going to be guiding you through it. If you're my client, we'll be guiding you through it. If you're not my client, as I mentioned, we've got the videos, but we also have a 1-hour session that we can do to actually help you get your flow down, get your statements down. But overall, throughout this whole course, it's really important that you take care of yourself. So that means if you start feeling really emotionally heightened as I'm speaking or as you're watching the course, pause the course, stop the course, do some tapping, breathe, feel your feet in the chair or on the floor or wherever they are. I have my feet crossed, so my feet are in my chair, right? Look around the room and remember that you are here right now and that you are safe. So if anything starts really heightening emotion, you could also start tapping your finger points together. You can start tapping your chest points. Really keep yourself in your body, because this is going to be really important for your healing process. And take notes of what is it that's starting to pull you out, that's starting to create some emotional intensity for you, and either bring that to sessions with me, sessions with your therapist, or whoever you're seeing for your emotional support. Okay, so do we all agree that we're going to do that? Great. Once again, I also want to mention that I really find it important to honor diversity, to honor equity. So in this course, it was originally developed for cis heterosexual couples. That's the language that I use. Those are a lot of the pictures that you'll see, but know that this can be applied to any combination, right? Polyamorous couples, same gender couples, trans. It does not matter how you identify. It does not matter who your partners are, or how many partners there are, right? This is really about healing yourself and your relationship. So just know that even though I'm speaking one way, this is really meant to be inclusive, but it's just easier than spending an extra whole series of time trying to talk about every single separate different situation that could be happening. Okay. All right. So emotional freedom techniques itself is a form of energy psychology medicine. And really what we believe is that most issues are emotional at their core. Quote unquote, negative emotions, worry, grief, anger are a result of blocks in the energy system. And the things that cause these blocks are things like painful experiences, trauma, right? Anything that's too much for your mind to handle when it actually happens due to whatever circumstances going on. And as humans, we try to set these things aside, right? like as if it hasn't happened. We try to create time and space and we think, oh, that's not affecting me anymore, right? And I hear people say this all the time. Oh, I'm over that. Like that was years ago. That's no big deal. But remember that our experience in the moment actually influences who and how we are now, right? So for example, if you fall off your bicycle when you're 5 and you scrape your knee, right now you're like, oh yeah, I fell when I was 5 and I scraped my knee. It's no big deal, right? But when you're 5, if you're bloody and you scrape your knee and you're in pain and no one's around and you can't get the help you need, that could be a traumatic event, right? So just remember as you're doing this class and as you're working through this process that things that don't necessarily seem like a big deal now, or that you're like, that's not even related to what I'm working with. Your brain somehow has made a link, and that link is informing what's happening now. So just know that even if you're like, wow, I'm tapping on, my body image and I'm thinking about the time I was catching frogs when I was 5, right? Your brain has put it in some kind of bucket and it's important to explore. So look at what happened when I was catching frogs when I was 5. What was I feeling? Did someone say something? Was there a tone? There's some kind of link that could possibly be there. So just know that those things are happening. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's all I want to say about that. So when we're working with emotional freedom techniques, we're also working with the meridian energy system. Basically, we're working with acupressure points, but instead of using acupuncture needles, we're using our fingertips. As we do the tapping, we'll be tapping on certain points on our body. And when we first start, and what you'll see in the PDF is we are going to start with the side of our hand. And so it doesn't matter ever when you're tapping what hand you're tapping on, or even if you switch in the middle. Okay. But when we start doing tapping, we're going to start with the side of the hand. And this is our statement where we're addressing the situation that we're working with, how we feel about it, thinking about it right now, and where, if anywhere, do we feel it in our body. So for example, if I'm thinking about, I'm fighting with my sister, right? Oh, I fought with my sister 2 weeks ago. I don't want to think about all the times I fought with my sister because that's going to be emotionally overwhelming, right? I mean, we've been, 40 plus years of fighting or whatever, right? All the times when we were 2 or 3 or 5 or 8, or all the conflicts are going to come up, and it's just too much. So either tapping won't work, or it's going to be emotionally overwhelming. And the same happens when you're going to be working with your own emotional situations. So we want to narrow it down as specifically as possible. So thinking about fighting with my sister 2 weeks ago, right? So what I want to do is, as I'm thinking about fighting with my sister 2 weeks ago, how do I feel about it now? I can't change how I felt back then. If I was angry back then, I can't change that. But what I can change is how I feel about it now. And that's where the brain actually has the situation linked anyway. Does that make sense? So even though right now, or back then I was angry, right now I might feel sad that we fought, or frustrated that we keep fighting about politics or whatever it was we were fighting about, right? So I look at, how do I feel right now? Then you're going to evaluate, how strong is it in your body? 0, meaning it's non-existent, to 10, meaning it's overwhelming. So you're going to rate that. And then where in your body do you feel it, if anywhere? So that can be, there's a tightness in my stomach, there's a shortness of breath, it can be kind of hidden, like, oh, I just feel like I have to wiggle in my chair. But really what it is, it's in your hip, or it's in your sacrum, or it's in your, you know what I mean? Like it can be anywhere. You may start feeling a little bit tingly or floating as if you're not in your body. Just notice that as well. Okay. Sometimes you won't feel anything in your body, and that's okay. You just skip that part, because some things don't get stored in our body in a way that we can access it, or in a way that we're feeling it. And sometimes our body is not ready to release it quite yet, or it's not safe for us to feel it in our body, right? Like we've learned that our body is not a safe place to feel or a safe place to be. So just know that if you're not feeling in your body, it's okay. So what we're doing is we're starting out acknowledging the situation, how we feel about it now, and where it is in our body. So what that sounds like is, even though I feel sad, emotion in my chest, the body part, thinking about the situation, fighting with my sister 2 weeks ago. The second part is going to be some kind of self-acceptance phrase. Usually that sounds like I deeply and completely accept myself. That's the one we use most often in tapping. But in this class, we're going to be talking a lot about things that we feel guilty about, that we're taught to be ashamed about. And so you may not be in a place of self-acceptance. And what's really important as you're tapping, whether you're tapping, mimicking me in class, or whether you're doing it on your own, is that the words resonate with you. So you can use alternative statements such as, I'm open to accepting myself. I'm open to accepting the situation. I accept I feel this way about it. I'm open to letting this go, right? So you can use, it has to be positive, powerful, and in the now, but those statements can be used to help your brain say, oh yeah, even though there's this like yucky thing here, it's going to be okay. It is okay. I'm safe. Right? That's another one we use. Right here, right now, I'm safe. So when we start doing this, our brain neurology starts shifting to come to a place of neutrality of emotion so we can be calm, find clarity, have confidence and choice in what it is we're moving forward in and how we're going to take action or non-action in the situation. Okay. So it doesn't matter how hard you tap, what side you tap on. Okay. And once again, this is all in your PDFs and all that kind of stuff. So once you're done on the side of the hand, we're going to do that 3 times, even though I'm feeling X emotion in my Y body part, thinking about Z situation, and then the acceptance statement. I deeply and completely accept myself. You're going to do that 3 times. So the rest of the points, we're only doing what's called a reminder phrase. So this is the emotion in the body part if it's present. So the first one's the top of the head. So in this case, it would be feeling sad in my chest. The next point is between the eyes, and you'll see me abbreviate this in your homework as BE, between the eyes. Okay. Side of the eyes, right at the temples. Now, these points, you can tap both sides, you can tap one side, you can tap the other side, doesn't matter, okay? So side of the eyes, you'll see that abbreviated in your homework as SE. Next one is under the eyes. So this is right underneath the pupil of the eye, right at the cheekbone there. Under the nose, UN, you'll see that in your homework. Under the mouth. Under the collarbones. So what you want to do is find your collarbones, find the soft spots right underneath. This is the point that's recommended always to tap both sides. So you can tap two-handed, you can tap one-handed, both sides, doesn't matter. And then under the arm is the last point. Okay, and it's just basically right where your arm reaches across. If you can't reach across, you can tap the same side. You can tell my kids, just look like a monkey. It's all great, right? So that's one round of tapping. After each round, you're going to reevaluate your level of intensity and your emotion. Okay, so once again, I don't have tons of time to go into it in this class. It's all on your PDF. It's on the videos online. So please, please, please look at that. Make sure you're really comfortable with basic EFT because you'll go so much farther in this class if you're really comfortable doing this. Okay. All right. So emotional connections. There's a great story that's shared by Babette Rothschild. And she talks about a man who had a lot of trauma that resulted from getting bit by a dog, right? And then one day he was out riding his bike and a dog had run after him, a dog had attacked him, bitten him. And so for years and days, he was afraid to like go out on his bike. And every time he was on his bike and he saw a dog, he got nervous he'd get bit again. And then it kept getting worse where he started being unable to leave his house, or if he heard a dog bark, even on the television, he would start getting feelings of anxiety and panic, right? This is very common when there's any kind of trauma. But the story that Babette shares is about how he was there doing meditation with her. I don't know if it was with her, but in this meditation retreat, right? And one of the days when he's sitting in meditation, the therapy dog that was there came up and rested its head right where he had gotten bit. So the man opens his eyes, sees the dog, panics, faints. So why would the dog choose him? If there's 20, 30, 40, 50 participants. We talk a lot about this in energetic work. It's called the phenomenon of reenactment or recapitulation. And what happens, have you ever heard like whatever you resist persists? Whatever we don't work with or whatever we don't clear tends to happen over and over and over again because we are energetically resonating at a certain vibration that attracts similar situations over and over and over again until we actually choose to heal. And nowhere are these cycles more obvious than in bed and in romantic relationships, right? So they say the largest sex organ is between your ears, right? Sexuality comes from your brain. So what about sex and happiness, right? And why are we even talking about sex? Like, why is sex so important overall? I mean, look at our culture, right? Sex and sexuality are so dominant. Social media, magazine covers, television commercials, right? We all hear the word sex sells, sex sells. Everything, internet, cars, anything that people want to sell has some level of sex in it for the most part, not always, right? But the internet has more pages and sites dedicated to sex than any other topic. But why is it important? And why is it linked to our happiness? Well, according to a Dartmouth study of over 16,000 Americans, sex is the #1 activity that produces the single largest amount of happiness. And you're like, okay, maybe that's a little overrated. Maybe you're worried about living longer and longevity and something like that instead. Well, the Journal of Gerontology, excuse me, reported that happiness was found to predict longevity better than any other health aspect and better than any other physical activity. So in theory, a vibrant sex life begets more happiness, and greater happiness is correlated with increased longevity. According to research, 200 orgasms a year can reduce your physiological age by 6 years. So for those of you that are worried about your age, it's something to think about. But really overall, there are lots of beneficial effects of sex on your health. Okay. Queen University study reported that men who have sex 3 or more times a week can result in 50% decrease in a man's risk of heart attack and stroke. A Wilkes University study shows that sex 1 to 2 times per week boosted immune response by 30%. Exercise and fitness is comparable to regular lovemaking because what it does is increase heart health, burns off 200 calories or more. It can tone core muscle and pelvic strength. It actually helps regulate women's menstrual cycles, reduces a man's risk of prostate cancer, and produces endorphins enough to reduce physical pain and been shown to offer temporary release from headaches. So even though the whole tradition is like, oh, I have a headache, I shouldn't have sex, I can't have sex tonight, it actually helps solve them, right? So now we can't use that excuse anymore. So there you go. There's that. I also want to say everything, and this is really important, everything that you experience around your body and your sexuality is normal. There are very, very few instances in which there's actually a physical challenge that cannot be overcome. How you look, how you smell, how you look, your sex drive or your lack thereof, what you like, what you don't like, all of that is normal, even though you may not have been taught so. So in these courses, we will explore how to make all of this more accessible for you, how to understand yourself more deeply as you release the emotional contributing factors that are challenging your connection in your relationship. Because a healthy sex life can bring about greater intimacy in a relationship, but remember, it's not always about sex, even though that's the focus of this class, right? But the physical act does create surges in the hormone oxytocin. And if you know about oxytocin, half my book's about it, but it's really called the cuddling hormone. Increased levels of oxytocin result in better trust, better bonding, better connection. It reduces stress. It increases desire. It sends messages to our brain to secrete neurotransmitters that make us feel good about ourselves and our partner. And in fact, James Cohen did this lovely study. I just laugh every time I quote the study, and I have it in all my books because I think it's so great. He actually had he was studying relationships, and he was studying basically what he was doing. He had women laying in a machine under threat of shock, right? Holding either no hand, a stranger's hand, or their husband's hand. Okay. And what they found is that every time they threatened to shock the woman, right, her stress hormones would go up, as you can probably imagine. If she was holding a stranger's hand, the intensity at which she experienced that level of stress decreased. In other words, the stress hormones didn't go up as high, and the body physiological reactions weren't as intense. If she was holding her husband or her partner's hand of many years, the results were even less, right? There was less stress effect. And then, as he likes to report, he goes, so then we decided to start shocking everybody. And we actually put the stress pads on the husband as well. And they showed that when they threatened to shock the wife, the husband's stress response also went up, right? So there was a synergistic rise in the stress hormones in the male as well as the female. Even though he wasn't actually going to be shocked, he was just under the threat of his wife being shocked, right? So think about now, when you're with your partner, how this interacts when you're stressed out about work, about kids, about finances, about life. When there's a fight that's been unresolved, or one of you has resolved it and the other one hasn't, how is this interacting in your relationship? Right? So this is why emotional and intellectual intimacy are also so important, because you need good, clear communication in order to clear this. You need to understand your own wants, needs, and desires to move forward. So as we go through this course, be really clear with what comes up for you. Whether you have a partner or not, what do you want to explore? What have you done in the past that doesn't suit you? And be curious. See if the things you feel that don't suit you, or that you don't like, or that you think you don't like, actually have a base in your own physiology. Or was there a time where something was awkward or embarrassing, or maybe you had a day where your sensitivity was really low, or your sensitivity was different, and now your belief or emotion around it has changed? Because a lot of this can be shifted if you choose. But I do want to say as well that lovemaking is very important, because it's a vehicle and a path to seeing your partner in the greatest and most godly aspects. So the act has the potential to create the most miraculous things, right? Like you can create a baby. Like what else can you do to create such a miracle, right? But this sacredness is really worth time and effort. And you may go through this course and realize that maybe there's just no intimacy and sexuality with your partner. There are some sex educators that say, if you don't enjoy the smell of your partner, like in other words, their natural smell, their pheromones, that it's much harder to have an intimate connection, because your body's natural reaction and response isn't there, right? If there's been breaks of trust, breaks of rapport, breaks of a lot of things over time, like some of that is hard to get back and doesn't come back. So I also want to give you permission not to force things, not to feel like you have to fix your sex life, in quotes, right? Or that it's your fault, or that you need to make it better, or it's your responsibility, right? This is an exploration of you. Yes, you are here because you want to make something better for yourself, and perhaps for your partner, for your relationship as a whole. But don't put all the pressure on yourself. Be really gentle. Right? Because that's where healing comes from, is self-forgiveness, self-love, and gentleness. Okay. So I want to talk about as well some problems that go along with topics of sex. There's 4 primary descriptions of how sex can go awry on a physical level, right? Sexual dysfunctions are really prevalent. They affect about 43% of women and 31% of men. So let's talk first about sexual pain. We can work with women, EFT can work with women on the emotional contributing factors to this. So statistically, sexual pain disorders are reported in 10 to 15% of women and less than 5% of men. It can range from something as severe as vaginal atrophy, where sex is physically impossible, to discomfort during penetration for various reasons. So we can work with that. Sexual desire challenges. A hypo or underactive sexual desire disorder has been reported in about 30% of women, 15% of men. And it's really associated with a variety of medical and psychological causes. Okay. According to a USA Today poll, 30 to 50% of adult women report they have little to no sex drive. And when it comes to men, right, the category is not fixed just by Viagra, right? The pill doesn't do anything for desire, just for arousal. It just increases blood flow to the penis. So in order to counteract the lack of desire, right? But it doesn't address the root emotional cause of why a man or why a woman would not want to have sex in the first place. So this is what we want to work with. So one question you can ask yourself is, if I could be fully sexual again, what might the repercussions be? In other words, what badness might come out of it? Because this is going to give you a clue as to what's underlying and what's in the way of, what's the wall to your desire coming back. So for example, I've had male clients who were traumatized by past relationships, or whose former wives or former partners had cut them off from sex completely. And they were so used to feeling shame, to not wanting to have infidelity, to like locking themselves down, that when they got into their new relationships, they had challenges until they actually were able to heal themselves. Okay. So fear of being judged, fear of being criticized, having those actually happen to you in the past, right? All of these things contribute to sexless marriages, to shame, to guilt. And when we know that stress, time pressures, lack of connection, financial strain, all that kills your libido. So is it that far of a stretch to know that most of the desire problem can be dealt with successfully if you're clearing the emotional stuff to reduce these emotional blocks and fear? Right? So when we're talking about sexual arousal, we often think about it as men, like I just mentioned with Viagra, right? But it happens in women as well. In fact, 10 to 20% of men and women, strongly age-related in men, but not always. Because remember, sexual arousal is a physiological process, but also it's influenced by our mind, by psychological, by emotional factors. And with women, I also just want to create a little link here that's not often talked about. So there's a belief that a woman is aroused if the vagina is lubricated, and that's not always true. So it's possible for a woman to have lubrication and not be aroused. It's also possible for a woman to be aroused and not be lubricated, right? So the idea of like, am I wet? Am I not wet? And does that mean I'm aroused or not? Those two things are not always linked. So know that and trust that about yourself to know, am I actually aroused? Am I not aroused? Do I just need to get some lubrication from an outside source, right? Or am I lubricated? I'm not actually aroused. My body is responding, but my mind is locking down, right? And then speaking your wants and your needs and desires around that. Another sexual arousal challenge for many men, for men in general, is hyperarousal, right? 30 to 40% of men experience premature ejaculation at some point in time in their life. 1 in 5 men between the ages of 18 and 59 report incidences of premature ejaculation. One of the places that this can come from is emotional and psychological. In fact, that's where the majority of it comes from. Professionally, a lot of the men who struggle with this, it actually gets led back to a childhood experience or a younger experience where they got caught masturbating. And it was traumatic or is embarrassing for them. And their subconscious mind then, when they're with their partner, is like, let's hurry up and get this over so we don't get caught. And it's actually an emotional push to keep oneself safe from being re-traumatized or being embarrassed again. Okay. So once again, this can be cleared with emotional freedom techniques. So drugs like Viagra, drugs like Cialis, a lot of men who have erectile dysfunction are looking for any way that they can to overcome an arousal disorder. These stats are really on the rise, right? Some it's the pressure that we're putting on men to perform. Some of it's the pornography and the way that we're portraying each other in films, in expectations, how we expect each other to show up in the bedroom, right? Often it's also emotional. Of course, there are a percentage of cases that are physiological, right? That do require medical intervention. But I know a lot of men who've had temporary problems with partners, without partners, doesn't matter, just because they're stressed out, because they're thinking about other things, because their body is just trying to show them like, hey, I need a rest, or hey, I need some different food, or hey, I need more water, or hey, you're pushing yourself too hard, whatever it is, right? And so these things can actually be shifted by good self-care. Orgasm challenges. So orgasm issues are really common in women. Female orgasmic disorder is characterized by persistent or recurrent delay in frequency or absence of orgasm, or markedly diminished intensity of orgasm despite adequate sexual stimulation. So this can be lifelong, it can be acquired, it can occur in all situations, or situational, meaning it's only occurring in select situations. The occurrence that they report of female orgasmic problems ranges from 10% to 42%, depending upon factors like age, culture, symptom duration. And for men, orgasmic disorder is an ability to reach orgasm with a partner, or an inability to achieve orgasm without lengthy sexual contact, or an inability to have orgasm during intercourse. I want to note once again that also there's no length of time that it should take for either men or women to reach orgasm, because your factors, hormonal stress, cycles, your brain, foreplay, all impact the length of time it takes in the ability to orgasm, right? But often the mind will get in the way and start contributing to the downfall of our connection, right? Like if you want to scare an inorgasmic woman to death, tell her that you can read her mind during sex, because she's going to be thinking something like, oh, this is silly. Oh my God, I feel fat. Oh God, what's taking him so long? Oh, what's for dinner? Shoot, I forgot to make dinner. Okay. Oh my God, my mother would die if she saw me now, right? Like our brains, and men do this too, right? The brain's just like, oh my God, what's she expecting? I hope she doesn't get sore. And our brains just start going on and on and on. Right? So this can contribute to all these challenges. So tapping on, doing EFT on all the nagging voices, all of the things that come up when you're actually having sexual intercourse, can actually release that. So you can start feeling more relaxed, move towards orgasm, and not forcing yourself to go at a certain pace, or expecting it to be a certain way, or feel a certain way, or at a certain time, or all of the stuff. The influences of internet pornography, sex addiction, and past sexual abuse are so pervasive that it also can affect this and all the other categories. So we're going to talk about that more in later classes. But it's a bigger issue, right? As humans, we're hardwired to detect danger in our surroundings. So that includes those who are physically close to and that we're vulnerable with. Our brain and our nervous systems, through the process of neuroception, informs us whether a situation feels safe to us or not. It informs who we're quote unquote triggered by, right? Where there's emotional intensity, who we need protection from. So this is where sometimes people are like, oh, I can have really great sex with anybody except for my partner, right? Or if you read the book, Mating in Captivity by Esther Perez, she talks about this, where sometimes once a couple actually becomes so intertwined and so in love, and they start having babies, all of a sudden the connection, quote unquote, desexualizes each other. And all of a sudden they're having a hard time being turned on because the quote unquote animalistic nature has shifted. So we need to shift the way that we start thinking about intimacy to find greater self-love, greater self-expression. How do we reach a nurturing connection with one another, activate the neocortex, which is kind of our more quote unquote evolved brain, right? The humanistic brain. When we're in fight, flight, when we're dissociative, when we're worried about stress, or how we should do this, or how we should act, or oh, the sound I made, or how do I smell, or how do I taste, or all the stuff, right? Fear shows up, and then it totally locks down our whole system. So some of the common fears regarding sexuality that we're going to be tapping on. I want you to think about how it might feel if you unearthed something about your own desire for wanting or not wanting sex that you had kept hidden from yourself. Does that feel scary to you? So start there. Are you worried about discovering an issue that feels too big, or that feels embarrassing, or feels uncomfortable? Or that if you clear something or discover something, that it could create a rift in your current relationship? Like, well, everything's okay right now in the relationship. Like things aren't great, but they're good. What if I want to have more frequent sex? Or if I want to change positions? What if I want to redirect my partner to do something that I've not done before? Or what if I've told that my partner that I like that, but I've realized I don't really like that. And now I have to like re-educate my partner about that. What if my partner judges me? What if there's shame, right? Like all of these things, they might be offended. They might make fun of you. So, or you might not, even worse, like for some people, it's like you may ask for it and not get it. And you feel let down again, right? So, or feeling frightened. So what are all these fears? So I forgot to say this at the beginning of the class, but when you come to these classes, when you do your homework, when you're doing your tapping, keep a notebook by your side and start writing down all the things that are coming up, because all of those things are tappable issues, things that you can clear on your own. Okay. But first, we're just going to do a little bit of tapping together. You can grab notebook, pen, and paper if you want right now. We're going to do some tapping just to start exploring what might come up if we actually take this class, what you're doing. I mean, you're almost done with class 1 already, right? So we're going to do just some tapping. And what the tapping, as I mentioned in this class that I'm doing in class does is it's to help uncover what's underlying. Okay. So I'll be doing the tapping. You're just going to tap the same points and repeat after me. Okay. So even though I'm scared that I'll uncover a problem that's too big for me, and I won't know how to deal with it, I accept I feel this way. And even though there's a part of me that would rather remain in the dark about any sexual problems that I'm experiencing, I can accept where I am right now. And even though I'm not sure what we're going to cover in this class, I'm feeling a little nervous. Maybe I don't want to face all this after all. I'm willing and open to let it go and to give myself a chance. Okay, so top of the head. I'm scared of what I might discover. Between the eyes. What if something's just too big? Side of the eyes. What if this challenges my relationship in a way that I wasn't expecting? Under the eyes. What if I can't clear this? Under the nose. What if it's too overwhelming? It takes too much time or it makes things worse? Under the mouth. There might be too much that gets revealed. Collarbones. Kind of scared of looking for the problem. Under there. What if I actually find it? I'm going to keep going for those that are my clients. We're just going to keep going around. Top of the head. So what if I could allow something to just reveal itself? Between the eyes. What if I allow myself the insights? Side of the eyes. What if I choose to be curious in this process? Under the eyes. What if I take a step towards healing? Under the nose. What other areas of my life might expand as a result of this awareness? Under the mouth. I choose to explore these parts of me. Collarbones. I choose to be gentle and patient with myself during this process. And under the arm. I'm open to being compassionate with myself as I go through this journey. So take a breath. Jot down any notes. And just allow yourself the possibility. What about the possibility of using sex for more than physical pleasure, right? How transformative can it be for you? How expansive are the possibilities of deep intimacy and shared sexual connection? The possibility of transformative sexual experience resides within the practice of cultivating this life force energy, this kundalini energy, as it's often referred to. And Wayne Dyer refers to the timelessness and universality of the pleasurable sound of awe in his book, In the Power of Intention. And so I'm going to read this off. He says that this familiar sound is obviously found frequently during the pleasures of sex. It's also shared with many of the names of God, Yahweh, Allah, Ra, Jehovah, Krishna, Kaliya, Yeshua. So while many religious dictums have tried to create a distance between a living and a holy God, perhaps the relationship between living a divinely inspired life and sexual satisfaction is closer than many have allowed it to be, and that we've been taught to accept. Combining spirituality and intimacy is not a new topic. There's a lot of ancient philosophical schools that teach that one of the ways you experience your more divine self is with a loving partner. The Mindshift Institute reports that 10 to 12% of adults in the United States have had at least one transcendent sexual episode in their lifetime. Scientific research has revealed when certain neuronal aspects of the brain are stimulated, even recreated actually in the laboratory, spiritual experiences can be creative. Some people try to really reach the state with plant substances, with mushrooms, with psychedelics, but why not forgo the electrodes in your brain or the hangover, right? And explore the possibilities that exist for you with your loving partner. So once again, as soon as you start discussing expansive possibilities, what sex can come up is the contrast. The lack of congruence, the vision of connection may bring up despair or hopelessness or inadequacy, or I'm never going to get that, or other people have, or I don't deserve it. Maybe you feel sad about the current status of your relationship or ashamed about the problems you're experiencing in bed. Maybe you're experiencing guilt about your current sex life. Maybe you think you should have looked at this sooner, or you're frustrated or you're angry. So just focus right now. How are you feeling in this moment? Listening to my voice as you think about your current partnership. Name your emotion. How strong is it from 0 to 10? Where is it in your body? And tap on it. So I hope that I've kind of, titillated you and brought up some possibilities for what can happen in these next 7 weeks, next 6 weeks at this point. So each class builds on the foundation of the next one. So I really encourage you as much as possible to do the homework that's laid out. And this week, it's really about, you're going to receive specific assignments. This week, it's really about clearing some of the past stuff and really opening your mind to the possibilities of what you can have for yourself. Right? Next week's all going to be about body image and body relationships, how you see your body, how you experience your body, what's changed about your body, what you think others see and experience and think about your body, right? We'll also talk in future weeks about, we call it monsters under the bed. So what's happened in your past sexual injury. We'll talk about the doctor in the bed, which is how to emotionally work with physical issues. We have a class called The Priest in the Bed, which is all about healing any stigma around what religion or spirituality or lack thereof has taught you or educated you about your body and how it should be, or how sexuality should be, and your morals and your judgments and the ethics and all those kinds of things. We'll talk The Wired Bed, which is how stress impacts your relationship, how it impacts lovemaking, how to reverse that. And then the last class will really be about resurrecting and really coming to the next stage of what you want. So your homework assignment this week is to go back, explore your list of fears around this topic, as I mentioned. How are you feeling currently about your relationship? And that's all. So thanks for joining me. Classes are going to range in the future. They're scheduled for an hour. Sometimes they'll be shorter. Tonight is the longest class because I had to teach more about EFT. But I hope to see you live. I'm going to stop the recording now. And for those of you that are live, if you have any questions or concerns, we can talk about that now. Otherwise, I will see you all next week, same place, same time. Look in your email. I will post all the links for the videos and all the homework once those are available. So thanks so much. And stop.